Buenos Aires is one of Latin America's most celebrated cities. The historic architecture and monuments gives you the feeling of visiting a European city in a time past by. The abundance of cultural happenings in Buenos Aires will regale even the most seasoned traveler. For those craving a little more serenity, there's plenty of that as well, just on the outskirts of the city. It's time to explore the incredible Argentine capital of Buenos Aires.
Travel. For some, it's a luxurious escape, or maybe an adrenaline-filled adventure. But if you're like me, it's a precious opportunity to discover and to give back. It's time to get real. It's time to get raw. It's time for raw travel.
Much of Buenos Aires was designed after Paris in the late 1800s. Today, it's the second largest city in South America, with around 13 million porteños, which translates to people from the port. Of course, what it means to be porteño is up for debate in this city of immigrants. In fact, one of the defining characteristics of this grand metropolis is the influence of European immigrants, and more recently, Jewish, Asian, and those from other areas in South America.
Usually big cities have public transportation systems. Here you can take the bus or the subway, and it's a great way to see the city like a local.
In Buenos Aires, the subte, or subway, is super easy to use and cheap. The subway opened in the early 1900s and was the first in all of Latin America. If you really want to appreciate the city's history, take the A line, which still uses the historic wooden cars from its early days. I met up with travel writer and guide Mike Luongo. Mike's a native North American who lives in Argentina part-time and is an expert on all things Buenos Aires.
What's your favorite part about Buenos Aires?
I love Avenida de Mayo, and I love the Casa Rosada and Plaza de Mayo. Avenida de Mayo is a boulevard that was cut through when Buenos Aires was really becoming an important city at the turn of the last century. So it's full of neoclassical French-style buildings, Art Nouveau buildings, and an incredible grandeur. Plaza de Mayo, you know, the Casa Rosada is there where Evita had given her speeches, and now there's a lot of protests.
Okay, well, what about this place? Where are we right now, and can you tell me a little bit about this?
Well, right now we're at the Obelisco, the obelisk. This is also, we're on 9 de Julio, which is considered the widest urban boulevard in the world.
I heard that.
This is really the main symbol of Buenos Aires.
Right. So a lot of people have this image of Argentines as very European, almost maybe looking like me, but looking around, I see it's actually very diverse. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, the image of Argentina is a European one. Most of the immigrants are actually in Buenos Aires, are from Italy, from Spain. You actually find more Italian last names than Spanish last names in Buenos Aires. You do have some people of Indian heritage. You have a very tiny minority of African heritage. So it's more mixed than people believe.
And the immigrants are still coming in to this day, right? They still flock to Buenos Aires for opportunity. Right?
Yeah, you have, well, for example, you have a lot of Asian immigrants, not a lot, but you have a Chinatown here. Again, you have Bolivian and Peruvians that are immigrating here because the economic opportunity was better.
Right.
And a lot of Americans like me who are coming, a lot of Europeans who are coming, not necessarily to immigrate, but to find a way to live here for a little bit long term.
San Telmo is the oldest neighborhood in Buenos Aires and where the city's elite once lived. Today, San Telmo is famous for its massive flea markets every Sunday in the Plaza Dorrego. It's easy to fall in love with the old-style architecture and buildings of this historic neighborhood and imagine what life was like years ago.
We're here at Calle Florida, or Calle Florida, as they say in Argentina. Tell me a little bit about this place.
It's one of the most famous streets in Buenos Aires. This is where you often see people tangoing on the street, people going shopping. There's a lot of leather shops, there's other souvenir shops. So it's really the heart of what's called the microcentro, which is what Argentines call downtown Buenos Aires.
Okay. So I'm confused about one thing. Are they Argentines or Argentines, or what are they, man?
Well, I think we Americans would generally say Argentinian. You're taking it from Argentino or Argentina, which would be how Argentines would describe themselves.
Okay.
So really, say Argentine, say Argentine, say Argentinian.
Tomato?
Yeah, it's all one or another way of saying it.
Nobody's gonna get mad if I call them an Argentine.
No, nobody's gonna get mad.
All right, good.
Now, if you're like me, you may try to avoid cemeteries at all costs. But originally built in 1822, Cementerio Recoleta is a must-see when visiting Buenos Aires.
So these tombs are very elaborate. Who's buried here?
Well, these are like mini mansions. Most of the people that are buried here are the oligarchs, the elite, the political leaders. We know that Evita, for example, is buried here. She's the most famous person buried here.
Is this still an active cemetery? Are they still burying people
This
today?
is an active cemetery.
And at night, is it spooky?
You know, technically you can't be in at night because it closes at 6, but I would assume that it's a little spooky. But there might be those cats around that you've seen, those 75, 80 cats, to keep you company if you come in at night.
Oh, cool. So if you come to Recoleta, bring some cat food.
Yeah.
Whenever I travel, I try to look for the underground scene. Here in Buenos Aires, it's Galleria Bond Street. Here you can get a tattoo, get piercings, buy some really cool clothes. Whatever you're into, you can probably find it here.
There are tons of tattoo parlors where you can pick which artist you like best. I decided to skip the ink and instead stopped by a cool little clothing shop called Faith and met the owner, Sebastian.
Okay, Sebastian, man.
Hello, my friend.
How are you?
Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you, man. Good to meet you.
Y aquí, sorry, my friend, my English no is perfect. Argentina style. My shop is t-shirts designed for me.
Okay.
Me gusta mucho el punk rock.
A lot of punk rock, rockabilly,
Rockabilly también, sí.
psychobilly.
Psychobilly también.
In Buenos Aires, the rockabilly and psychobilly scenes began in the 1990s. It was heavily influenced by bands and media outlets from North America and Europe.
So do you get a lot of visitors from outside of Buenos Aires and Argentina visit your store?
Yes, bueno, mira, la clientela que viene extranjera es bastante grande. Se asombra porque sabe que aquí en Argentina no abunda ese style, no hay mucho de ese estilo y cuando ven una prenda hecha aquí, les gusta.
I found some really cool and unique stuff that I couldn't find in the US. After I bought some gear, I was set to hit the underground scene in Buenos Aires. First stop, Mundo Bizarro, or Bizarre World.
So we're here at the world-famous Mundo Bizarro, or Rockabilly Bar in Buenos Aires, and I'm here with Pablo Peñata. How you doing, Pablo?
Fine, how are you?
I'm good, man, I'm good. Pablo, the type of people that come to Mundo Bizarro, are they only into rockabilly, or what type of people come?
No, we have a mixed crowd.
It's an alternative kind of crowd, right?
It's subcultural.
Subculture.
Alternative.
Got it, got it. And how do they hear about you? On the internet, word of mouth?
It's more like mouth to mouth. It's a word
of mouth.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Now, I also hear you guys have a pretty mean martini, right? You're famous for that?
Yeah.
And you're like one of the most famous bartenders in the city, so, you know, I was wondering maybe would you fix me a martini?
Of course. That's my thing.
All right, I had a long day. Let's go, man.
Okay.
Thanks, buddy.
Okay, so 2 martinis later, I took a taxi to Salon Perredon, a legendary venue where you can catch live music on almost any given night. Mostly underground music. Well, it's late and time for me to get some sleep, but you should stay tuned because coming up, I'm going to check out a legendary soccer team, volunteer some of my time to help out, and then do the unthinkable, learn to tango.
When traveling through Latin America, don't expect the public phones to work. So here's a tip. Unlock your phone and buy a local SIM card and you'll be good to go.
In the late 1800s, there was a huge migration of Italians to Buenos Aires, and many settled in the colorful neighborhood of Boca. Today, El Caminito in Boca is a popular tourist spot where stores sell all types of souvenirs. There are plenty of photo ops, you can find live tango at the European-style cafes, a wax museum, and street artists performing for tips. You definitely don't want to leave Boca until you strike the classic tango pose. Among the variety of bright colors in Boca's El Caminito, you may notice the colors switch to a palette of yellow and blue. It's no coincidence. Those are the team colors of Boca's legendary soccer team, the Boca Juniors. Indeed, just down the block from El Caminito is La Bombonera, home to the most storied soccer team in the Americas. If you're not visiting on game day, no need to worry. You can tour the Boca Juniors Museum. Soccer in Argentina is like religion. River Plate is one of Boca's biggest rivals. Buenos Aires has 5 professional soccer clubs, and their fans are some of the most passionate in the world.
When you visit Argentina, you have to tango. A fun thing to do is to go to a place like Complejo Tango, where you can see a professional tango show, take in dinner, and beforehand you can learn how to tango yourself.
People from all over the world come to Complejo Tango to learn the basics of tango. The class starts with walking. Hey, this is not so complex. Posture and holding your partner. Uh-oh, now we're beginning to move our feet. You choose random partners and ta-da, we're doing the tango.
This is tougher than I thought.
An hour later, the instructor picks me out of the crowd. He wants me to show my moves. Aw, man, the pressure's on. I did it. I learned to tango. Look, Mom, I have a tango degree. That should look great on my resume. This experience continues with a 3-course meal, and then it's time for the pros to hit the stage. Complejo Tango's show tells the history of tango through dance. It all started in the early 1900s when men danced with other men because most women thought the dance was too suggestive. Then the men started to dance with women in bars, cafes, poker houses, and of course, bordellos. Other styles developed like the milonga before tango as we know it was born. The show ends with a contemporary tango. The audience gets a chance to participate, and all in all, it's a very sexy evening.
After this break, we'll learn more about the tango and how it evolved to become Argentina's most popular export. And we'll meet an organization helping travelers assist locals who could use a helping hand. Argentina is famous for its music and dance tango. But did you know that the word tango actually comes from Africa?
Lo que todo parece indicar que la palabra tango, como la palabra milonga, son inequívocamente vocablos africanos.
When enslaved Africans arrived to Buenos Aires, they brought with them a dance called candombe. This form of celebration influenced other forms of Argentine folkloric dances.
Se conoce otro tipo de música negra llamada milonga, de la cual se considera que es uno de los pilares fundacionales del tango, tal cual lo conocemos hoy.
The African diaspora were brought to Argentina in the late 16th century, as early as 1588.
Cientos de miles de africanos esclavizados llegaron a la Argentina por el puerto de Buenos Aires y por el de Montevideo también.
The ethnic groups that arrived to Argentina from Africa were from areas today known as Guinea, Angola, Congo, and other parts of Central Africa. The Bantu ethnic group were the most prominent. You can hear their influence in traditional Afro-Argentine songs.
Hay una serie de cantos y de bailes que son los más antiguos porque están en lenguas africanas arcaicas, lenguas africanas, y se cantan y se bailan, aunque quienes lo hacen desconocen en general qué es lo que están cantando, el nombre del idioma o qué función tenía antiguamente ese canto. Se trata en general de cantos en lenguas del tronco bantú, como por ejemplo la lengua kikongo.
There is still a surprisingly widespread misconception that there are no afros in Argentina.
En la Argentina se dice que no hay negros, no hay afrodescendientes.
Today, the Afro-Argentine population is around 2 million, with a mixture of descendants from enslaved Africans that go by the term tronco colonial, or colonial root. There are also those from more recent migrations from places like Cape Verde and neighboring countries like Uruguay and Brazil. And within the Afro community, people categorize themselves with different terms, such as negro che and negro usted.
Los afroargentinos tradicionales, criollos o tronco colonial, como se dice ahora, solían utilizar estas categorías sociales dentro del grupo, el negro che y el negro usted. El negro che era el negro con menos instrucción, el negro que estaba más apegado al candombe, y en cambio el negro usted era aquel que había podido progresar y avanzar en la escala social de la sociedad porteña, que de alguna manera se blanqueó.
While Argentina has an undeniably rich history of European migration, Argentina is also a diverse melting pot of a variety of cultural roots, including a significant African influence.
Y bueno, ahora están reconociendo la música, las costumbres, es como que se están llegando más, interpretando más lo que nosotros realizamos. Pero ahora lo que queremos nosotros es un lugar en la historia, un reconocimiento en la historia.
A lot of times when you're traveling, you feel inspired to give back. One place you can do that is Voluntario Global. I'm here with Valeria, one of the founders. Valeria, can you tell me what is the mission of the organization?
Okay, we try to develop programs, volunteer programs, according to the needs in the community, poor communities we work with.
Since 2005, Voluntario Global has been working to better these communities by finding volunteers from all over the world. If you are interested in volunteering, then you can apply online. Voluntario Global will help find the right fit for you.
What kind of skills do you look for in a volunteer?
It depends on their initiative, like most of all, because even if you don't speak Spanish, then you can help in the gardening, you can help in the kitchen, you can help taking care of kids.
So I'm here with Mike, who's volunteering from the United States. Mike, what brings you here?
Well, I've been living in Buenos Aires for about a year, and I found out about this job, which is in an organic garden in a giant psychiatric hospital here in Buenos Aires.
So what's the idea? Do you actually garden with the patients?
We do everything from watering the garden to planting plants. We're actually building a bathroom now out of natural and recycled materials.
Voluntario Global partners with local government organizations where locals can help out by cooking for needy people in the neighborhood, and in exchange, they receive food. Free computer classes are also provided so that people can learn valuable job skills.
Yeah, I think what I like about Buenos Aires is that it's a big city, there's a lot to do, it takes several days, you never really get bored, yet you can still get around pretty easy. The other thing I like about it, it has a very heavy European influence. I sometimes feel like I'm in Italy, yet it's still got a lot of diversity within the culture. And I've been in Buenos Aires for a couple days. It's really cool, but I'm really looking forward to taking some day trips and discovering what's outside of Buenos Aires.
All this hustle and bustle of the big city has this traveler craving some me time. Stay tuned as we hit the outskirts of Buenos Aires to relax while visiting nearby El Tigre. And no, there's not a tiger in sight. Plus, we'll try to blend in with the porteños by trying some mate, a traditional Argentine tea that must be good because everybody seems to be sipping it here.
The key to travel is flexibility because things change. In this case, we were going to take the train, but because of the protest, it's closed, so we got to work around it.
Argentina has a long and often painful political history. From the hundreds of Argentines that died fighting Britain for the Falkland Islands, to the tens of thousands of people that disappeared or were kidnapped and killed by the military in the late 1970s.
This is the monument to the Islas Malvinas War, what we would call the Falkland Islands War. The war was fought in 1982 between Argentina and Great Britain. Great Britain won. The war was really about the dictatorship wanting to maintain power and have a distraction when there was terrible inflation, when there was a lot of people disenchanted with the government. So while the war was tragic, about 700 Argentines had died, it did lead to the downfall of the dictatorship and the bringing back of democracy to Argentina.
Perhaps then it's no surprise that Argentina, the birthplace of Che Guevara, has a history of its citizens practicing their democratic right of political protest. But for the raw traveler, these often frequent protests can sometimes mess up the agenda. So finally, the next day, we were able to take the train to Tigre, an important tourist town that sits on a river delta to the north of Buenos Aires. Hey, what's up with this thing? Once you're in Tigre, a main attraction is the fruit market. Although the market does not actually have much fruit anymore, it has a huge selection of souvenir items.
If you'd like to shop, Tigre is a good day trip. It's just an hour outside of Buenos Aires by train, and you can buy items made in Argentina or imported from all over the world.
Tigre also has an amusement park and a great little waffle restaurant that was a welcome break from the steady diet of croissants we'd been eating for breakfast.
Tigre has a lot of interesting places. We're getting ready to head to a place called Tres Bocas. But if you want to get there, you got to take a boat.
On the way to Tres Bocas, you'll see tourists kayaking, rowing, and boating, as well as some soaking up the sun on the beaches while others lounge outside their summer homes. Before you leave El Tigre, be sure to stop by the Mate Museum.
Mate is very important to the culture here because just like tea in England, it's a very social drink. It gets passed around from person to person at social gatherings. Also, it's high in nutrients and it gives you energy.
The Mate Museum holds a collection of herbs, old antiques, and artifacts known for producing mate, as well as hosting an area where you can sip your sour or sweet mate. I thought the artwork and detail of the items on display was really cool. There seems to be so much effort put into preserving their heritage. Around here, having mate with a friend is so much more than just sipping some tea.
Who knew that tea could be so intellectually stimulating and important? Mate is a crucial contributor to Argentina's economy. It's also a popular drink in neighboring Uruguay, Paraguay, Chile, and Bolivia. In all my travels throughout Latin America, Buenos Aires is like no other. It's a true world-class city, very sophisticated and metropolitan. Yet just minutes away, you get a totally different vibe in small towns like El Tigre. And while it might be easy to classify Buenos Aires as a European-like destination, it's much more complex and diverse than at first glance. Combining Italian, Spanish, indigenous, even African, and other cultures has created a unique blend like no other. And while I heartily recommend Buenos Aires to anyone visiting Argentina for the first time, it's a really big country with an extremely diverse landscape and climate. I can't wait to come back and see what other adventures Argentina has on offer for a curious traveler.